Step number 5, learnings. So as you recall in the earlier step 4, which was the testing, we've captured a fail or pass, we've taken a look at the outcome, and we've given it a brief description. So this is the starting point for process number 5 to take place. Obviously, it's sequential to number 4, right? So we've captured that detail, and now we're going to do something with it, right? And this is where we start to detail common patterns, okay? So when we take a look at a learning, we're looking at patterns. We want to understand what are some of the commonalities that we found, some things that if I continuously tested it and it continuously kept failing, why does it keep failing? What is the pattern behind it that keeps it failing or keeps it passing or keeps it giving a certain consistent outcome or an inconsistent outcome? So there could be some commonalities in the inputs that you learn from that consistently create inconsistency, right? So you can see how creative the learning part can really be. You need to be very observational. There's no right or wrong to this, and it's important you work through this process very carefully. Then you look at listing ways to improve that success or failure. So here we are, we found all these commonalities, and what we're looking at is how do I take this and actually improve it? What can I do with it? Do I have to add something to it? Do I have to remove something from it? Do I have to reduce something from it? Or do I need to completely add something, or do I need to optimize it, right? So let's run through that one more time, because that's a really important systematic way of thinking through it, right? Either I need to add something, I need to remove something, I need to reduce something, or I need to optimize something, okay? And that's where you do that kind of thinking where you're going to be looking at those very specific things. Finally, is listing ways to generate new hacks. So here we are, we found these common patterns, we looked at ways to add things, we looked at ways to remove things, we looked at ways to reduce things, we looked at ways to optimize things, and here we are looking at potentially new hacks that come out of it. So you can have very linear ideas. Linear ideas could be just like a very direct, obvious link between the common pattern that you found, the outcome, the improvement that you're looking at. So whether it be an add, reduction, whatever it is, and then you look at, this is a very obvious linear outcome. Here's one idea. But there's also some very lateral ideas that may come out of this, and this is where things can get really exciting, where it's like, hey, wait a second, why hasn't anyone ever thought about this? Why hasn't anyone ever solved it like this? Why has it always been done like this but hasn't been done in any other way? Or why has it been solved but hasn't been solved well enough and there's still room for solving this even better? What is it that exists that others have not seen? What is it that doesn't exist that needs to be created that can solve this problem, right? So we need to be thinking in a systematic yet lateral way, taking these linear inputs. So let me run that by you one more time, okay? We have these linear inputs, right? So these common patterns. We look at how we're going to improve them. And then we have two things that are going to come out of this, right? This is what we're going to put here. Things that are very obvious. So these are linear outcomes. And then lateral outcomes. Things that generate on top of that don't necessarily directly link, or it may link, but not necessarily like a Lego. It doesn't fit perfectly. And that's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for a mix of these types of generated new growth hacks. And the idea here behind the system, we're going to explain this in the next part. So let me switch over here. So this is really important. I want to spend a little bit of time on this. So the system that we talked about earlier, right? So you see that each one of those circles represents the single hack. And so you start with number 1 and you work to number 5. And this is where the 1-5-20 rule that I've been talking about comes into play. So how does it work? Okay. At the end of every growth hack, there's learning, which is the process that we've just done here in number 5. Okay? At the end of the 5th growth hack, you're going to find a spot that is going to take you into aggregating or accumulating those first 5 learnings. So you're going to take those 5 learnings and we're going to look at the same way. We're going to look at it. What are some of the commonalities? What are some of the improvements? And what are some of the new generated outcomes? Now, the reason we do it in a 1-5-20 format is you're going to learn things in growth hack 1. You're going to learn things that are all independent of each other. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all independent learnings. But what's going to happen when you step back and you take a look at from a meta perspective or a bigger picture perspective, you're going to start to recognize that there are things between number 1 through 5 that have some commonalities in them. You're going to find some things that they may not have in common that may generate new ideas, or you might find a combination of the two, right? And what's going to happen is you're going to take those learnings that are accumulated from those first 5 hacks. So that's where the 1-to-5 ratio. You're going to repeat that 1-to-5 ratio 4 times because you're going to go from 1 to 5 and then you do your aggregated learning, and then from 6 to 10, aggregated learning, and then from from 11 to 15, your aggregated learning of 16 to 20, right? And so you work in increments of 5. And the objective, when you see the 1 through 20, which is like the 1, 5, 20 rule, is that you're going to take all that accumulated learning at the very, very end, and at the end of your book, you're going to come up with your next biggest growth hacks, okay? And this is what keeps the process moving along in a systematic yet very creative way. The learning part of this system is super, super, super important. The good thing is that this is a video you can rewind and learn again. I suggest that you listen to this again very carefully rather than me continuously repeating, because this 1-5-20 rule is, of course, it's embedded in the process, so you don't have to worry. It's a step-by-step thing. But I want you to understand the system because I want you to know why you're doing it. So you learn on each independent one, the collection of every 5, and you work in the increments of the 5 until you've got all 20. Then you've got some super blow out of the water, mind-blowing, big next hacks that help you work on your next hacks within the same system and the same form of thinking.